Hampden's a very picturesque community, predominantly residential. It's off the beaten path. There's no state-numbered highways in Hampden.
The Scannick River's nice. I used to ride a tube down it when I was a kid. We'd start up by the Chapin Road Bridge. Here's the dam. There's a picture of the dam. There used to be a mill on the river.
We've got a few mountain ranges here. The main corridor sits in a valley.
Minnechaug Mountain. That's pretty cool.
Hampden's kind of hovered around the 5,000 mark as far as population goes for, I think, the last 20 years or so. And yeah, it's a small community, so everybody knows each other. And that's mainly how things get done.
This would be the townhouse. Our selectmen have so many people coming at them, and I want this, I want that, do this, do that. And there's only so much money, in the budget.
In this office, we work closely with everyone. Planning board, building department, fire department, highway. You just do what's asked. You have to in order to make it all work.
I think all our departments are very well run. I think the highway department does the best they can. They're buying more equipment and getting better stuff. Roadside mowers, and they needed one. They had an old sickle bar thing, and that thing was an antique.
The Main Street Bridge on East Brook, according to my records, was built after the New England hurricane of 1938. So it's getting up there in age.
The weather plays a huge part in a small town. Takes out roads. There was a flood back in the 50s that divided the town in half.
And the water came across where St. Mary's Church is and flooded into the fields of the Hampden nurseries, which my father owned. All the streams and brooks and everything was flooding.
There's a lot of bridges that have the stamp of, 1950, 1951, 1955. The reason that is because all the bridges were washed out during this large storm.
One of my concerns is, usually if they're all built around the same time, then stands to reason that they may start showing decline around the same time.
So I have been out to look at our bridges and culverts in town. What we see are that our infrastructure's old. In some cases, it's undersized based on what we see happening with heavier rain events and thunderstorms that come through, especially in other municipalities and states. It's a lot easier to fix it now than it is to do it in an emergency.
We have more energy in our atmosphere, so there's more moisture in the atmosphere. And so when it comes down more intensely. Bridge behind me, as it looks right now, the water's flowing through quite nicely, but last spring there was a flood. The water came right up to the lip of the road. There's been floods where the water's been over the road. All the trees and other debris that are moving down the stream in the storm get lodged in there, and it just causes a lot of flooding. That bridge was not designed to be a dam.
Since you don't really see it, you don't really think about it. And as long as the road is still operational and functional, you don't know what the condition of a culvert that you're driving over might be. If this bridge were to wash out, one half of the community would be cut off from the other half. As a former DPW director in central Massachusetts, I can certainly understand what these communities are dealing with. Funding challenges throughout the years have created situations where not only highway departments, but many departments are at the bare minimum for being able to maintain existing operations. In the case of this community, the design cost of this bridge is greater than their Chapter 90 funds for a single year. What we're able to do is identify that need with the community and pair it up with a funding program that we felt that they could be eligible for, and it turns out that they were. Now's your opportunity. You have a bridge that's in bad condition. Now's the time to replace it and do what's best for your community.
Over the years, the MVP program's goal has been to get every single community in the Commonwealth to identify their local climate change, adaptation, and resilience priorities. We focus on dealing with the impacts of climate change and doing it in a way that works with nature. Most towns are doing tremendous amounts of work already, and so taking on a long-term permitting and design process, in addition to funding schools, in addition to funding DPW, in addition to all the things that towns have to do in order to function, it's not uncommon for these long-term projects just to fall off the radar. And the ability for us to help fund something so it can be advanced through the different stages of design, permitting, bid-ready documents can really help a town access the right funding stream for final construction.
The MVP project is funding the design work for the town of Hampden to replace the Main Street Bridge. Once the town has the final design, then we can get on what's called the Transportation Improvement Plan, or the TIP, at the MPO. And that will make construction funding available to the town to actually replace the bridge. Hampden's annual operating budget is about $16.5 million. So bridges that cost $4 and $5 million, it's a really difficult project for the town to fund purely out of its tax base.
I have done about 23 MVP planning grants. I've worked in large cities and small towns. Hampden's MVP planning process began with a community resilience building workshop.
Climate change is three things. It's rising temperature, it's the changing precipitation, and then sea level rise.
Every community that goes through the planning process develops a matrix. So the risk matrix asks the participants to identify both those threats and opportunities to address those threats. It included three sectors: infrastructure, society, and the environment. Culverts are a big deal. Those roads that didn't flood before are now flooding during extreme rain events. In these communities, they all share older buildings that weren't necessarily built with air conditioning because it wasn't needed. Now the heat comes sooner and it sticks around longer. So even in schools, air conditioning is becoming a priority. So there's a common thread amongst all these communities, but yet each one manages to find their own unique need. Like in Hampden's case, it turned out to be that Main Street Bridge.
So I've been here 10 months. The two issues that have come up are the extreme heat, and we also had a high wind event that took down some trees and some power lines. You know, what we're seeing are more intense storms that come through, heavier rain, higher winds, those types of things.
I should never have this job because I'm petrified of bugs and germs and diseases and all of it. It's awful. Triple E, every year it gets high. The state will notify us when there's a danger. West Nile, Triple E, Limes. They send us all the information, and then we are responsible to put it out to the people of our town. So when I first started, it was almost nil, nothing, and then it is, eventually grown to the high counts now that we get at the end of the summer are more of a normal than not.
While I'm planning the day or the week, I'm mindful. I don't need to have anybody getting sick or heat stroke. We may try to wrap up any maybe hot mix, hot asphalt work by noontime and do something a little less strenuous if it's going to be, super hot out.
From the municipal standpoint, we'll open cooling centers when it gets extremely hot. We're trying to protect those most vulnerable. Our senior center is available for people to go there of any age. And then also the library is available as well.
We had the October storm. Weird snowstorm knocked out power for 7 days in Hampden. Board of Health is lucky enough to have a trailer we got from grants and stocked. We loaded it up to one of the fire trucks, pulled it over to the senior center, opened the doors and put up cots. Everybody donated food. It was amazing.
And Mass Audubon is just hugely excited about the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program in Massachusetts because it's really helping to bring community attention to climate change preparedness issues. That includes infrastructure like roads and school buildings and police stations and other emergency preparedness facilities, but it also includes what people call nature-based solutions to climate change. There's really no land cover better than forest for slowing down stormwater during intense storm events. It's never one thing that kills a tree. At Laughing Brook, hundreds of our oak trees were killed by successive years of being defoliated by spongy moths. Years of defoliation by spongy moth is a stress, but extra heat is another stress. All of these stressors are kind of coming to bear all at once.
I feel like we're not getting as much snow as we used to, like when I was a kid, and maybe a little bit wetter conditions, so we might be using a little bit more salt. And you get those temperatures that hover right around 30 degrees. You're getting freezing, then you're getting slush, so we might have to scrape off the slush, and then it freezes. So we just always have to be prepared, make sure we have enough salt in the salt shed, and make sure all of our trucks and equipment are in good working order, and just respond the best we can.
In order to raise a cow, you need to have good water and good quality hay, which is sometimes not doable because we have drought. Like we had a drought this fall, and that really hurt. Right away you start, buying more hay, bringing in more hay, and this is what you're gonna supplement it with because you don't have any grazing.
So currently with this drought, we have had maybe 5 wells that had to be decommissioned, destroyed, and new wells put in. If your well is shallow, there's a good chance that it's going to go dry.
People are like, I got a shallow well, hopefully it'll start raining. Maybe I can get some water from the neighbor, which a lot of people did. They're running hoses. At least they could get something to drink and wait until it rained. But it went like almost 3 months before it finally rained in November.
Flooding, it definitely could devastate your septic field and your septic tank. And putting that in is even worse than a well.
We didn't have any wildfires in town, but we did provide mutual aid to the town of Munson, who had a significant wildfire. Hampden has a tanker and a brush truck, so we actually staff and lend those resources to neighboring towns when they're needed. And that was a multi-week event.
Some things that could make a culvert fail is just age, the type of material that they were constructed with. Some of the older culverts out here were made of corrugated steel. Some of them are concrete. If we're treating our roads with salt, that doesn't help. Over the years, they rot out. Before any rain event or forecasted heavy event, we'll take some time the day before and we check a lot of our low-lying culverts and make sure all of our catch basin tops are clear of leaves and debris, just to make sure the water's going to be able to exit the road and get to where it should go. Yeah, water will do what it wants to do. It'll find the path of least resistance, and you fix a washout here, maybe pave a little swale for it, give the water that place to go. A year later, the water wants to exit the road 100 feet down the road. So those types of washouts are something that we deal with, often.
So we're currently on the East Brook of Main Street here in Hampden. It's one of their major bridges in town. We're here today because this is one of their locations where they've had major flooding in the past. It's also a location where their bridge right now is in kind of a deficient condition where it has erosion on the beam 10 and 1 on the outside of it, and it's really caused by rust. We have tons of storms here in New England, especially snow, and salt is the easiest way to keep those roads clear and safe. The problem is that's seeping through and it's causing these major holes at the seats of each side of the beam. The bridge itself is not deficient where it can't carry traffic. It's just those outside beams, the webbing itself can no longer handle the load of the vehicle. Those locations the town really brought to our attention saying, hey, you guys can take a look at it and see if it's a high priority for the town.
All my work is primarily in the state of Massachusetts. I've worked on over 100 bridges throughout my career. I've seen deterioration of all kinds. This one isn't surprising at all. As of right now, it doesn't even work for the 25-year flood. It gets overtopped on a regular basis. So we designed the bridge per the Mass DOT stream crossing standards. You have to look at the stream bed width upstream and downstream and kind of come up with an average. And typically what we do is you need to increase that span by 20% to meet stream crossing standards. For that, we determined that the proposed span for this bridge needed to be around 32 feet. And what that allows is it gives you a wider hydraulic opening so that during a heavy storm, it allows more room for the water to flow underneath the bridge. The existing bridge has a span length of around 16 feet. So clearly undersized hydraulically, which is why you see flooding issues. And then under normal conditions, it also provides more bank so that animals will be able to cross underneath the bridge along the bridge abutments.
A lot of times when you get bridges and culverts, they're undersized. Big wide stream before, bottleneck down, and then afterwards it opens back up. When you get that bottleneck, the level of the stream rises. And not only with that, the velocity gets more increased. If you look along the Main Street Bridge, the banks are very steep, which means the stream itself is getting very incised. So a lot of times, the more and more incised you look at a river, that means there's going to be a bottleneck either upstream or downstream that's causing this deep channel erosion, which is making it create a V instead of looking more of like a parabolic look. It's getting more of that V-shaped, which again is just because the velocity underneath the water is so strong, it's just causing a lot of erosion downstream specifically. So another important thing about hydraulic capacity, again, is when you have these large storms, all these trees come down, you'll see them dammed up against these bridge structures, and they'll keep damming up, and all of a sudden you'll see the bridge fail, and the reason why the bridge is failing is because there's so much excess pressure on the bridge that it wasn't designed for it. So when you open up those banks, it helps with climate resiliency when you have these flooding situations, because the worst thing that can happen is that, you get these large floods, and all of a sudden a bridge is washed out, and the emergency services from one side of town can't get to the other side during these major storm events. So it really was a main characteristic, not only, to fix the bridge because of its deficiencies, but also to make sure that when we're fixing it, we're making it wide enough to allow it to flood its banks when it needs to, but not so much elevate the water when it's going through, just allow more water through, but at a lower elevation.
As part of the MVP grant process, they also are encouraging communities to look at long-term solutions. So not only to replace the bridge, but what other things can occur within the community to improve the resiliency at the bridge.
One thing related to this brook in particular that we're interested in working with the town with is you can see just to the left of the bridge, there's a pipe sticking out of the bank. That pipe is carrying stormwater off of the roads and to some degree off of a corner of our parking lot at the sanctuary. Whenever I see a pipe just sticking straight into a brook, I think, wow, there's an opportunity to improve things. The water coming off of the pavement has elevated temperature, it's probably got elevated pollutants, and it's an impairment in terms of hydrology in storm response. Like that water reaches the brook a lot faster than it would if it were kind of filtering through a forest. So all of those things, we can essentially engineer constructed wetlands to perform those functions. So those are all things that we are super excited to work with the town on figuring out that and addressing that outfall there.
20th century infrastructure built for a 21st century world, those two things aren't going to match up. So at some point, the need to replace stuff is going to be very great. So I think on our end, it's providing that assist, that boost in a way that helps towns jumpstart their action towards addressing a concern that's been lingering for a while.
I think I'd want the public to know that the town is being proactive to try to address a lot of these issues. The process is slow and it's expensive, but in the end, it's much cheaper to address these issues now than to have to deal with the emergencies and the hassles that would happen if the road were to wash out, for instance. So the town's being proactive. It's a lengthy process. We have to be patient. I like working with volunteers. I like working with board members. Most of those positions are unpaid, so working with people who are passionate about what they're doing makes my job easier and more interesting.
If I were to say anything about the town and its people, it would be don't be afraid to come to the town hall and talk. Anything you want to know about the town is right here.
One of my favorite things about Laughing Brook, if we zoom back in time by 12,000 years, we would have been underwater. And sediments were just blasting off the landscape and filled that lake with sand and gravel. Then after the glaciers receded and that lake bed drained, the Scantic River, East Brook, Big Brook carved down through all of that material. And it left this great landscape.
I think we've got a good crew here, and we're all committed to making the town look nice and keeping people safe and really making travel through town pleasurable.